don't know how many times I've been crossed off the list and left for dead. So this ain't nothing new.
Can't keep a good Vin Diesel down, can you?
No, you
Never.
can't. Even at, there was at that point when we thought he was over.
Yeah.
He wasn't the Fast and Furious. Triple X had fizzled out.
Every little thing every action film he would appear in was like kind of either not quite a bomb, but like people didn't even know it came out type of thing.
That's a bomb.
Yeah. Well, they didn't cost enough money in the first place to technically be a bomb.
That's right. Because there was that one Luc Besson movie that's only in French. That's 18 hours long, and then there was the second Riddick.
And I mean, that's the thing is like he hit the ground running with Pitch Black, of course, where everyone was like, "Oh my God, who is this guy? Awesome. Who is this guy?
What race is he again?"
Don't ask too many questions. But then
that's going to be revealed in the fourth movie. All right,
he gets
it's all coming.
He gets all big after the first two Fast and the Furious films. The great one and the best gay movie ever made, the second one. And
right. Wait,
and
he's not in that second one.
No, he's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And
second one is still good.
And so they're like, all right, well, everyone loved Riddick. Let's go back. He's talking up to everyone. We got to do Riddick. Everyone wants to see more Riddick. And they made the Chronicles of Riddick, which is, it's like a children's book for 4-year-olds of like good versus evil and a lot of ways.
It's very much like it's got all the trappings of Heavy Metal magazine from the 80s, except not full of boobs. And it's also kind of soft when you get to the end. A lot of special effects.
So actually, no, it's nothing like Heavy Metal.
Well, the look of it.
Besides spaceships flying around.
Yeah, the design.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, the Chronicles of Riddick, that's one of like those hallmarks of what happens when you have a director who's great with working with a small budget and what happens when you give him too much money.
When they wanted to make a Star Wars, and it's like, you know what, you don't need to do that. We don't need to go that far into this character, into this series. It's like, it was the beginning of the Chronicles of the End. Where you're
that's
like,
the thing
man.
is, like, this is obviously Vin Diesel's favorite character. I mean, he loves this character. He helped design this character.
Sure.
He wants it to succeed. Hell, and now he owns this character.
He's been trying to make this movie for like 20 years.
Well, after Chronicles of Riddick was a critical failure and not that great of a success in the theater either, because quite frankly, it was just plain silly. The only scenes that were good were the ones where it was just him.
Yeah.
Whenever he was talking, you were like, oh, awesome. But anybody else, you're like, come on, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
bad.
All you people who are riding Carl Urban's dick, go back and watch the Chronicles of Riddick.
It felt like bad Babylon 5 script writing or something. It
It felt
really
like,
bad.
the worst episode ever of Babylon 5. So yeah, I was not expecting to really see another episode, but when he did that little guest appearance at the end of the third Fast and the Furious film, that was the deal, apparently, that he traded, like, I'll appear, I'll do a cameo at the end of Tokyo Drift if you let me own the rights to Riddick. And the studio was like, did you actually see the receipts on the Chronicles of Riddick? We would have just given it to you.
Like,
but sure.
What? No, just, okay, dude,
And
sure.
the thing is, I think part of it was like, he was upset by Chronicles of Riddick because it wasn't an adult movie anymore. And he didn't want Riddick not to be an adult character. And now that he, with his own money and his own people and bringing David Twohy, the director who's done the first two as well, back on board, they spent a long time writing this, of gathering the money together bit by bit to do it themselves and put out this third movie just called simply Riddick, which seems to be going in the right direction. I mean, if the name says it all, hey, we pulled way back. Fuck the Chronicles of.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Riddick.
It's like he did what he should have done, which is go back to what you were good at. Same thing that he did with Fast and Furious. I mean, you watch the Fast and Furious where he reappears. It's pretty much a reboot of that first movie, but with a lot crazier. This one, I'm glad they went back to that simple template of bounty hunters just looking for his ass, and then having a third element, which is every damn living thing on the planet trying to eat you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like with the Fast and the Furious movies, it's like not so much a reboot, but it's like, hey, let's make this the official sequel to the first movie.
Yeah, this is what people liked in the first place. Let's go back and try that again.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I would say it's the movie's greatest strength and its greatest weakness at the same time, because it's maybe a touch over-reliant on the formula from the original Pitch Black, but not so much that I think it takes away from just having a fun time with this movie.
Well, I mean, I just saw it as, with Aliens to Alien. It was just, it was that sequel that needed to happen. That, like right now, like, you could completely skip the Chronicles of Riddick. It's only there, like, for me, any feeling with this movie came in the first 15 minutes where it was like, okay, we know you saw the Chronicles of Riddick. Some of you did. We got to go back and bridge the gap between that and this.
I appreciate that, though.
Well, I appreciate they had to do it, but it's also what I thought was the weakest part. Cause that's where you get his voice over and some of that's written for him. It's kind of cheesy. I mean, it's tough guy macho dialogue. It doesn't always really work. You're like, all right, what's this leading to? But the action of that, showing him what a survivor he is.
Yeah.
Like, he's in like the most hostile of hostile environments and how he has to get through that. That's badass.
I loved how it just seemed, but that small like snippet to where they're bridging the gap between, well, not so much of a gap. They're just telling you what happened after that second movie, where that second movie was obviously going in a whole other direction.
Right.
Where it was like, all right, this is our Star Wars. And then when they, when the movie failed at the box office, they were like, okay, well, I guess that dream ain't happening. But you know what? So let's make another movie called the Escape from a Bad Movie.
The villain in that movie looked more like Dark Mask in Spaceballs than he did like anything else.
Dark Helmet.
Dark Helmet. That's it. Dark Helmet.
But I mean, they like when they leave that and they get into the meat of what this is, it does harken back to the first one. But I found it like really fun as hell. That first, like 30 minutes or so where
the Jack London on an alien planet.
Just Riddick trying to survive the elements. I was like, wow, I could watch this whole movie if it's all this. If it's just this, no dialogue, no anything, just his inner monologue of how he's trying to survive from these crazy looking creatures, I'm down.
Honestly, if I had a regret at one point in this movie, about in the middle of the film when it starts to sag a little bit for a bit, you're like, what's going to happen here? Is it just going to be him versus these mercs? Cause I really hope something else happens. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I was thinking to myself, I would have liked to have seen a 2-hour just that, like him versus the elements, him surviving on this planet, him building a new spaceship out of dead alien parts. I don't know what it was. Something,
I don't know if I can follow you there for a whole
Quest
2 hours.
For fire.
I mean, the 30 or 45 minutes we get of that for me was about enough.
And it is about time when it like switches gears. I mean, this film is very cleanly divided into 3 acts.
Yeah.
Very much so. Whereas the first act is that. It's Riddick. He got fucked over just like Conan does, because he is Conan in outer space.
He really is. Yeah, that's what that first part felt like.
Once you become king, the crown does not fit lightly on Conan types heads.
I finally got what I want. This is bullshit.
And so he ended up getting fucked over and dropped off on this planet to die. It's him, at the absolute bottom, can't even walk, crawling and killing indigenous life forms. So that's a lot of fun. Then eventually he finds a little station that has, that's basically a way station for bounty hunters. Who knew they were that organized? Mm-hmm. And he says, fuck it, hits the button.
Yeah, if we send out the distress call.
Yeah, which analyzes him and says, Riddick. I suppose the machine wasn't like, it's like
this guy,
which the best line in the film I hate to say is from the machine saying a bounty double if dead. And basically he's like, as they say later, it's like he did this because he was calling for a cab.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, he's signaling the bounty hunters to come. She's like, well, I'm just going to take your ship and leave.
And it gets interesting when 2 bounty hunter ships show up, or at least 1 bounty hunter ship and another group of people with a completely different agenda when it comes to them. That will indeed, in many ways, harken back to some of the plot elements and the specific story elements of the first Pitch Black. So suffice it to say, the rest of the film is not just him running from these bounty hunters.
Grant any last wishes? I was referring to you.
Not that the chains aren't a hot look. But no, I'm not going to straddle you in front of all these guys.
What if I killed all of them first?
Easy, boy. There's a lot more trank where that came from.
Like I said, they were trying to call back to Pitch Black. By the time we get to the third act, you're full on in Pitch Black territory. Only the monsters in question are even nastier.
They are.
I mean, this is basically, when it gets to that point, it's Riddick versus aliens in terms of like James Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah.
Like nasty. The only thing they don't have in common is they don't have acid for blood. Other than that, you're
I think, they probably thought about it and just said, okay, that'd be overkill.
I know. There's no way Riddick could even survive that. Let's not make our creatures crazy. I mean,
the thing that makes this movie work for me, that made it so much fun, is because I don't know about you, but me and Coles were like enjoying the hell of ourselves.
Yeah, we were.
Oh, I was too.
Okay. Is that this is like, on the surface, describing the movie, it's like every generic kind of action movie you see, like so many we've seen this summer. But what this had was great dialogue and interaction between all the bounty hunters and the mercs and Riddick himself. But everybody's reactions, like, what makes Riddick scary is the way people react to him. Like hearing his name, or when something goes bump in the night and they all get scared. That's when you really feel his power. Like, they get you amped up to where you feel it. But the way they're able to call each other and just sound like real people. And there's a lot of funny moments.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Lots of great little funny moments.
There's a terrific moment where he's got Bokeem Woodbine's character dead to rights. And he suddenly turns from like badass, braggy merc to any one of us.
I expect that next scene for him to be wearing a dress.
That's like the fun of watching this movie. Just the idea that these people have on who Riddick is, because the first movie you're hanging out with Riddick, so you really get to know him. You get to know if he has any fears at all. Really, you just realize the guy is just really smart at dealing with certain elements, and he's the guy you want to be. He is that kind of Conan type figure. But I love how the second part of the film really turns into a boogeyman film.
Yeah,
well, it's a horror movie in reverse.
Yeah, it is.
That's true.
Because it's like one at a time. Riddick, who is the terrifying monster they all know is out in the darkness, coming to get him, and not in like a light, oh, don't worry, it's just like going to sleep sort of way.
I'm always waiting for like one of the mercs to look outside the window and see like Vin Diesel there in his Riddick mask looking at him like Michael Myers, like, oh shit, he's out there, the boogeyman's real.
Or, there should have been a moment where they thought he was dead, and then they're calling for backup, and he just sits up like Michael Myers in the background.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so
kill him.
It's just so damn fun to watch that guy do his thing. And that's how it was for the entire movie. Now, I will say this, there are some really cheesy, lines, especially coming out of Vin Diesel's mouth, especially his delivery on some of it, where you can't help but laugh because he's hamming it up so much. And you could tell, you're like, okay, I guarantee you Vin Diesel wrote these lines for himself.
That's the thing, though, is that at those moments, he's always smiling, and it's like those moments are almost intentionally corny for him going, because he's always saying them to scare somebody, or freak somebody out.
You hope so, yeah.
Because he depends on how much he terrifies everyone.
And he knows that that's a tool. That's like tool for him.
Like,
and you can't help but smile and watch just these people shit their pants.
He's Samuel L. Jackson, who's got this whole speech prepared, Some
every
shit that just
time.
scared the shit out of him.
Well, he's like a cross between Batman and Wolverine, the way he's able to sneak around, and he's that lone anti-hero who can, heal miraculously and take a lot of punishment.
Well, yeah, he can take a lot of punishment.
The one thing I will say is that, like, watch this movie, it really hit home for me what was missing from the Wolverine movies, is that Riddick is a criminal. He's a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't even go like, well, he was framed for this or anything. It's like, no, they're.
Well, that's the thing though, is that what audiences want to see with an anti-hero like this? It's okay for him to be a murderer. It's okay for him to be an unrepentant criminal. But as long as he has a code.
He's got to have a code.
Yeah.
And Riddick has a very strict code.
Yes, he does. His code kicks in, and yes, he's murdered people. And with that code, you go like, well, maybe they all deserved it. Probably not. But maybe they did. And you see him have those moments where he's like, hey, you did wrong. You fucked up. You crossed my code. Yeah. I got to rub you out.
You're going,
Well, that's the thing.
But he is, he does do the deed. And he's that anti-hero. He would be a villain if it's not for the fact that he's facing people who are bigger douchebags than he is. And that always misses from the Wolverine is that element of danger that's used to be there. And they just kind of whitewash it out.
Well, it's that pool of everyone is a bad guy in this world. And you need to find somebody to latch onto.
Yes.
So why don't you latch onto the guy who you just know is going to survive? And that's the fun of watching him, go through these, go through all these scenes and watching him not only take on mercs, but the aliens themselves, which is always just a fun treat. The movie, this actually feels more like those heavy metal magazines should feel like. I even think this does it better than some of the stories I've read in heavy metal sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Where, you want to see, you want to read a story like this, but the thing I really noticed about this movie, where I have to, I don't know who's more responsible, either Vin Diesel or the director, but how some of it feels like almost like playing a video game in some ways. There's some aspects of it that you really get a sense of the modern day video games
yeah.
that kids have been playing. I know Vin Diesel's probably a hardcore,
the stealth
the
games.
stalking stealth thing, certain things like that. Even the fact that now, instead of like, the ships that they're using, they're now, everything's called nodes now. I was like, oh, okay, fuel cell nodes. How many times have I had to go search for that shit in a video game,
Oh, do you? I didn't even know about that.
Oh, you don't play.
But I mean,
wait a minute.
But you're right. Toei would make a great director for something like Metal Gear Solid movie or something.
Yeah, because the entire time watching it, I was like, wow, they really needed to find somebody who is close to getting a feel of a video game without really bumping you, like banging you on the head that you're playing a video game. I think it's this director. I hope he moves on to something a little bit more interesting as far as like, finding a video game movie to work on, especially something like a Dead Space. I think this guy can do the job.
I can't say for sure, but I think it's pronounced Tui.
Tui?
Maybe it is, yeah. I'm not sure.
Because it's spelled the same way as the parents of the kid in the Sandra Bullock movie.
Fair enough.
All right.
It's not like I don't get names wrong. In fact, it's more common than not. Yeah. But, you're right, co-host, and I think as well, I think that really though, ultimately the biggest appeal of this, alright, so 3 factors. 1, really funny dialogue and interactions between the characters, and Riddick just himself. Even when he's just dialoguing to himself, like in the first third of this film, it's actually pretty funny and cool through most of it. 2, world building. They created an interesting world, much better than they did in the second one.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, just got way too silly, way too heavy metal magazine. This one actually harkens more back to that idea of Pitch Black, that idea of like, well, let's build like an ecosystem on this planet. How does this work? What's going on? What are the different creatures that exist in it? And it's really cool. In fact, there's a whole thing with him and he basically makes a dog out of a local indigenous life form. And I love that dog, man. I was like, man, Old Geller, you're the best.
Yeah, you know what happens to dogs in these movies. I was like,
I love that.
It doesn't pay to be Riddick's friend.
But that stuff is cool. The way they build all that, the design of the aliens is really cool. Like the whole way that they kill is like, wow, that is really, really neat.
I know, it's sad to think also watching this, especially seeing the design of the aliens and thinking about the designs of the aliens that they use in Pitch Black. It's like, wow, how come nobody can really get this right as far as having a unique look and feel as far as aliens go in these sci-fi movies? They always feel generic. I mean, the only ones that you can really say is like, the aliens from the Ridley Scott, James Cameron films. I mean, because you do feel a certain threat. They do feel real. Watching them on screen, just being around them, you're really, how lethal they are. That's the thing about these movies, these Riddick films, is like, at least with the creatures, they really, they feel like a threat. They feel scary.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want to be anywhere near them.
Even Riddick is like, I'm not happy about this.
Yeah, and it really sucks you can't see other directors like really make their creatures work the way this guy can.
Yeah, agreed. Now the third major thing, and I think this is the key point, especially when you're talking about the Wolverine films and why those don't work as well, is that it's a rated R film.
Yeah.
And it delivers on what this guy is capable of doing in an extremely gory, sort of way at points.
I'm not one to get all gooey about the kills, but there were some great ones in there.
There's some really great kills in this movie. Some ones that are like, okay, I don't care who you are, you're gonna applaud when you see that kill. And if there were moments like that in the Wolverine movies, it actually showed like, look, not that whole sort of like, okay, presumably that guy got claws plunged into his chest, but maybe we saw a little bit of CG blood. I want to see him fucking claw a guy's head in half and fall into 4 halves. Dude, fuck that. That's gonna be the greatest Wolverine.
I want to see him do something really cold-blooded and walk away like it was nothing.
Yeah, but he does it he did it all the time in the last movie. We just didn't really see it.
Right.
You don't feel like there's any consequences when you don't see it on the screen.
And that's the thing, is there's always going to be studio heads who are concerned about that sort of thing. The truth is Wolverine was always the rated R character of comics.
Right.
And for them to try and sell him like just another PG character.
Well, now he's the Disney character of movies. Yeah.
And Disney's never going to let that shit happen.
Oh, no.
They'd have to buy back Miramax. But yeah, I think that while this is far from a perfect film, I mean, it's not perfect. There's problems at points with some of the CG.
You know what? Like a lot of it I thought looked good, but the hover bikes in the daytime looked terrible.
Hover bikes look like shit.
Except at night they look fine, but in the daytime,
the night scene with the hover bikes did look cool. But you're right. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I guess I can forgive this because everything else is working so much for this movie. Yeah, I can forgive it.
No, there's a bit too much of the the really fatal flaw with editing lately, which is that close-up combat where you can't really tell what's going on completely. And you're going, this is supposed to be two badasses duking it out. I'd kind of like to see two badasses duking it out and not a quick series of flash, flash, flash. Oh, there's a little bit of blood. Oh, something just
I feel like it didn't do that. I mean, it did it, but not too
bad.
much.
Yeah. We're not talking like the Firstborn movie or anything.
Right.
But and 3, of course, there's plot elements here that are kind of fucking silly. Like, there's a point they're like, oh God, he's trying to get back the nodes to the ships. They're in this locker. We better check and see if they're still in there. And, after a big dramatic scene, they open the locker. It's like, oh, thank God they're still there. Oh, we're safe. So what do? They walk off and leave the locker open. I was like, what the fuck was that? There's a couple moments in this film that are like that. You're like, okay, I'm enjoying this too much to give it too much of a shit.
I will say that I thought the ending felt a bit weak, because the one thing about, say what you will about the last Riddick movie, but it felt like it's kind of taking you somewhere else, because the adventures of this guy, they're not going to stop. But at the end of this one, I was like, especially for a badass character like this, I was a little disappointed about how
I know what you mean. It didn't have that bang at the same time. Maybe it was more like hedging their bets. Like, so often you see a movie and at the end it's going like, oh, come back for the next one for more adventures, and you're like, yeah, we'll see about that.
But that's what it felt like. They were a little too worried about this movie not making any money. Yet at the same time, if this were the last Riddick, it would still, it would feel like the series went out kind of on a whimper.
Well, once again, I would argue that the actual ending of all the action and everything, I thought was amazing.
Oh, I did too.
It was just the epilogue was a little like,
there was
okay.
Something you just wanted a little something more, especially like just Riddick to just be a badass instead of the ending, which I would hate to spoil because I thought it was kind of hilarious.
I thought that was pretty cool.
At least give us the stinger that says Riddick will return in Riddick.
and you only Riddick once.
the Riddick for the revenge.
Well, you guys know what I'm talking about.
No, I know.
The variant. I'm not talking about like the cool.
No, I know.
But that ending, I was like, oh, come on.
I know.
I didn't think so far it was bad. It was just, like, I felt like it needed a little bit more to flesh it out, to give you a feeling of like, okay, we deserve some more reward for our characters getting through all this.
Yeah.
It's such an adrenaline rush going up to that point, so you want something, that last bit. You're like, give me one more hit, John. Just one little hit.
And I'll say as well, this film's not going to be for everybody. If you've seen Pitch Black and you thought it was fantastic, you're probably going to love Riddick. Really. You probably are. In fact, if you generally like that, if you like Wolverine a lot in the comics, you're probably going to like Riddick. But I think some of your more frou-frou critical types are going to go like, whatever, it's just silly, it's just too much Pitch Black, whatever. No, they're not actually wrong. It's just not for them.
Yeah.
For those movies you already know you're hoping it's for you, it is. Mm-hmm. This is a lot of fun. I'm going to give it a low full price.
Yeah, man, that's my thing. If you go into this, come on like, well, that was silly. It's like, why did you even go to this in the first place? I'm not even going to talk to you. If you clearly went in for the idea of having to go like, yes, let me see what drivel the masses are watching these days. I didn't have high expectations because the trailers all look generic to me. And, this movie was tons of fun and something that we keep repeating. It's like, well, yeah, there was this problem, but everything else was working so much, so I forgave it. And that's through this whole movie. And to me, that's the mark of a movie that's really entertaining and does what it's supposed to do. I mean, that little boy in me it actually got that feeling that a lot of you guys got from Pacific Rim. I got it more from this, where I was just like, God damn, I am enjoying the hell out of myself. And the movie did something that a lot of franchise movies don't do, like none of the diehards did, is that there's a scene in here where I really did not know if he was going to live or not. It's like, I know it's a franchise and your main character has to live for the next one, but there was just at least one point, actually there's a point early on, but near the end where I was like, fuck, man, I think this might be it.
I guess that's your ass, I guess.
Leon kept holding on to me. I was like, oh God, don't let this be the end. This movie was getting really good.
I know they were having trouble getting the money together, and so did you. So you were thinking, he just wanted to go out with a bang. Yeah. He just wanted to end it with a big bang. Don't kill me. I love him.
But as much as it hits those formulas, there were things in here that really surprised me. I was like, wow, did not think they would go that way. That's pretty awesome. And the dialogue, the interaction is great. I could see this movie again and enjoy it. Like you, Cyrus, I give it a low full price.
I'm right there with you guys. I'm just going to give it a full price. Because I don't know, I can't ever pay low full price when I go to the movies. But
Don't start with that.
I know.
Come on,
Please.
you know it's
I'm sorry. How do you pay some old bullshit at the movies?
it's some bullshit.
you know
right
it's
there.
You know it's a number equivalent. Don't start with this.
No, I mean, but the thing is, this was exactly what I was hoping to get as far as something that reminded me of how much fun I had with Pitch Black, especially seeing these characters, deal with the elements, deal with the indigenous life. I mean, it's all fun sci-fi to me that not a lot of movies are doing at all. This one, it did feel like, at the same time, having a fun adventure movie, yet kind of feeling like you're playing a video game, like a really good, watching a good video game movie, along with just having some great, character moments, throughout this film, especially with the mercs. But, it definitely is a full price. I don't think anyone's gonna be, too upset about this, because I mean it is pretty much a Conan in space movie, and that's the strength of it. And seeing Vin Diesel just having a really good time playing this character because he plays it so fucking well. You can't ever replace Riddick with anybody else. I mean, you really do. You really do get immersed in this world, and I had a fucking blast with it.
And plus, he just needs to have The Rock come in the next one.
Don't worry,
it'll happen.
I would like to emphasize the fact that this is a rated R film that made it to theaters like this with sci-fi, which is less and less common these days.
Oh yeah,
that has it wasn't a huge budget, of course, but it was 38 million, which is respectable enough, and they made good use of that money
for a sci-fi movie. That's cheap.
Yeah, they did.
With all the sci-fi movies we've seen this year, this is probably had the lowest budget and probably the one I enjoyed the most.
Oh, can I also say you also get a bonus here, though? You get to see Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. You get to see her tits.
Oh, well, you can see one of them.
I know, we didn't even bring her up.
And she's great. She's playing Starbuck.
Yeah, she pretty much is. It's Starbuck getting naked.
First time since Battlestar Galactica, she's played a character like Starbuck. Mm-hmm. She's playing Starbuck.
It's Starbuck.
Yeah, it's Starbuck. So if you wanted to see her do it again, this is the one. But my point is, guys, if you support this, if you want to see more movies that sound like what we're describing here to you coming out, and and not to mention the fact Vin Diesel himself, like I said, owns this. Okay. So this is a smaller company doing this. This is a movie you pay to go see in the theater. This is a movie you support with your dollars and go, we are tired of fucking the watering down of fucking everything. Mm-hmm. We want to see more shit like this, because God knows I do.
I mean, just hearing this guy throughout the years really try to get this movie off the ground, off his own blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, I'm sure he was battling Hollywood executives just like he was these fucking creatures in this movie. The guy won, and it's actually good to see somebody who actually had a passion to really put this on the screen, regardless if we thought it would suck or not due to the last film. But, he took what worked and it made for a fucking exciting film.
He's a fighter. And I learned something I didn't know about this before, is that Riddick's first name is Richard. So his name is Dick Riddick.
Makes sense to me.
Which might explain why he's so fucked up.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know about you, but I knew some kids with some messed up names when I was in middle school those kids didn't get it easy.
Hey, I'm looking forward to the Chronicles of Dick, all right, for the next film. Can't wait.
You're not afraid of the dark, are you?